A lot of people have been asking me recently how I get my resources to my base via conveyor buses, and more importantly, how to deal with the miner outputs that are on a wonk. And though this particular case isn't particularly bad, you can see how this affects all of us when we're working from either the world grid or our own personal grids. But today I'm going to show you how to turn this into this. So let's get into it. For this tutorial, we have 6 miners, and they're all going to be leading their resources to a single resource bus. The resource bus in itself is very simple. It's sticking to our particular grid, but we have this followed by 6 inputs for the resources. And this is just going to convey the items to our base or our factory. We've taken the foundations across from the bus so that everything is in line with this. And we're just going to cover up the node very quickly, and from here we can place this on top. I find this is a nice way to make it look a bit cleaner, and once we've done that, we're going to pull out the resources. Now here it's relatively straight, so we're not going to worry too much about this particular build. However, we are going to talk about how to do this on a much more wonkier one, and we'll also talk about how you can create a 3x3 grid around the miners so that you can house it and do what you want with it. The next thing that I want to do with these is to get these to connect with the main bus. So for me, all I'm going to do is run it to roughly where a right angle would be, which I'm hoping is about there. So that we can hopefully run this all the way to the end, and it will be straight, as you can see here. Generally speaking, when feeding things into the bus, you want the nearest resource nodes to feed the lowest level, and then you have the ones further away feeding the top. But you're probably wondering how it is that we make this particular input central. For this, we're going to remove the foundations that they're currently on. It might be useful to have one, so we're going to leave that grid there as a reference point. And from here, we're going to grab the barrier. Now, this was suggested to me from Pobcat the other day. I had never thought of this. And apparently, if you hold control with the barrier, you can actually snap this to the front of the miner. Now, this is fantastic because from here, we can grab the catwalks, and these snap to the miner. The barrier, sorry, which means we can then grab another foundation and place that underneath. And now, if we remove the catwalk and barriers, we now have foundation directly under the center of this, which means that these lines are now going to be perfectly straight. This is still a balancing act between a different world grid or a different grid to the one that we're using on the miners. But generally speaking, this is a really nice way to make things look much more cleaner, at least at the input. And if you're careful, generally speaking, you can make it so that they look almost as if they're in the perfect position. So from here, I mean, this looks pretty close. If we pull this to here, it's not a perfect right angle, but it looks pretty good. And the great thing about that is if we do it on another one, so we're going to do the same technique as we've just shown. Grab the barrier, snap it, grab the catwalk. Going to snap these to the lower section, although you can do the top and then just use the 1 meter foundations to get the right height. Grab our foundations. Then from here we can do a little grid, and with this being central, we can now create a little building for our resources should we wish. I'm just going to play about with something really quickly, and then I'll show you what we've got. And here we are. It's a little bit more out there, but if we drop down, we can go inside, we can see the miner, we can go up to the top, and because these catwalks actually snap to the miner, you can make it look quite industrial. So quite liking this little build. But we're going to play around with a few more things, and then we're going to link them all back to there. Okay, so I do stand corrected. The catwalks don't actually snap to these. It's just that because it's on the same grid, that it looks like it does. I just assumed for some reason it did. I don't know why it's not doing it now. So just bear that in mind. And here we have the next one. This is a much more industrial feel that we've got going for it. As you can see, it's pretty much, it looks a bit like a rig, something which I think I'm going to do more often now because it looks really good. From here, we're going to pull the bus across. And if you want to give your conveyors the look as if they're supported, then there are ways in which you can cheat it. For example, if we grab, say, a pillar here and then grab a beam, we can grab these beam connectors and move them up so they're just under the belt, like so, and then grab a metal beam or a normal beam and run that along before dismantling the foundation beneath, because we're just using that as a grid snapping point. And then you can run that across. Or you could do something a bit more complicated that we've done over at our quartz factory, where you can see we've actually encased some of the conveyor lines in those framed pillars. Another thing that I'm going to mention is that once you've got the lower section of the inputs of the bus, the nearest ones to the bus sorted, there's no reason why you can't extend your bus on an upper level like we've done here, all the way along to a further point so that those are then collected. And that way you don't have to necessarily have lots of sprawling lines. So we've extended the bus out for the other three, and then for this section, you can see that we have supported the conveyor lines and then added the foundation supports here. And just in the center here, we've actually just done a little cross and brought a heavier beam in the middle. And before we finish off, I just wanted to show you how I've done this in another area in my map. And what we've done here really simply is just bring all of the items into 3 conveyor buses at the bottom of a tower, and then they're pulled up into the tower, and then from there they connect to the world grid, or the grid that we're using, all the way to the next location. And you can see that I've done this all over my world. Also note how I use the power. I've actually connected all of the connections to the bottom of the tower, and then you can see the power runs along the bus as well. But there you are, guys, a very quick guide on sorting out your buses to make them look relatively clean, and also how to pull your items from the miner to the buses, and ways in which you can make the miners look a little bit more interesting. And I think I'm going to use this more often. I really like it. And if this is something that interests you, then do check out my guide on conveyor logistics. I'll put that link to the video here. So there you are, guys. Special thanks does go to our amazing supporters on Patreon, most notably our solo clips patrons, The Calamity, Cerebral Tag, James Irwin, Jerry2, Firefless, and Podcac, as well as our Lunars, Dixie Chris, Lord of July, and Ben, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Papa Snoozy. Anyway, guys, until next time, as always, ciao for now.